Hey guys, it's SK Cubing and Games, and about a year ago I made a 5x5 last two edges video, and I didn't really explain the cases at all, and I just did them, so this is just an updated video, and I'm actually going to explain each of the cases that I do, so hopefully that'll help you. So in this video we're going to be covering two different ways to solve last two edges. One way is simpler in the sense that you don't really need to learn that many algorithms, but it's a little bit slower. And the other way is you can learn a lot of algorithms, but it'll be way quicker. Okay, so first a brief introduction. So on a 5x5 you can solve 10 of the edges without any problems. So here's just a basic example of how you'd solve an edge. So if I wanted to solve this orange-white edge, I have two pieces over here, I have one over here, I can pair them up. And then I have a broken edge up here so I can replace it, then realign the centers. So that's how you'd solve 10 of your edges. The problem arises when you have the last two edges, because even if you wanted to move the centers and match something up, you don't have anything to replace it with. So that's why there's two different methods. So first I'm going to be covering the easy method where you solve one edge at a time, which will take you a little bit longer, but then I'll be explaining each of the algorithms. So the first method is solving one edge at a time, and how you do that is you either locate a block of two edges that are solved, or you can locate a flipped block of two edges. Either one works. So we're going to be doing the example of two solved edges first. So in your last two edges, if you have one edge with two solved pieces, and your other edge, hold it so that the piece that needs to go here is diagonal from where it needs to go. Like if it's something like this, it won't work. Okay, so you just make sure that it's diagonal from where it needs to go. And all you're gonna do is you're gonna bring the spot over and you're gonna flip this edge. So how you flip an edge is simply by doing this. So that just flipped the edge, and when you realign the centers, this edge is solved. This one won't necessarily be solved, and I'll just show you a quick example of that. Okay, so in this example we have the same two pieces that are solved, and we have the other piece that's diagonal. But in this case, when we bring the slot over and when we flip this edge using our flipping algorithm, realigning the centers won't solve this edge, and that's why I call it solving one edge at a time, because that's essentially what you're doing. The second edge might just be solved sometimes. Okay, so our next example is when you have a flip block like this. So when you locate your flip block, place the third edge in line with the block, just like this, so that when you move it over, it creates a 2x1 block. So that could be, for example, if you're like this, you don't want to hold it like this, because if you move this over, you don't get a solved 2x1. So hold it so that when you move the single over to the double, the single being this and this is the double, it creates a 2x1. Then what you can do on this edge is just flip it using the flipping algorithm. And then when you realign the centers, it solves that edge. And once again, this edge won't necessarily be solved, so I'm going to be covering that a bit later. So essentially, that's what you're going to be doing to solve your last two edges this method. In this case, we have our flipped 2x1, but the third piece is right here. So what you can do in this case, you don't really need to learn any new algorithms for this method. You can just do the flipping algorithm. So move one of these center pieces over, do the flipping algorithm, and then move it back. Once you do that, you'll recognize that you have one of the two cases that we just previously covered. So in this case, I have my 2x1 here, my third piece diagonal to where it needs to go. I can move that slot over, flip this edge, then move it back. And that solves that. Okay, so when you're doing the last two edges this method, once you solve one edge, you may realize that the second edge might end up like this. So all you need to do for this case is hold the edge horizontally right in front of you, like right here, and you're going to want to do this algorithm. So what that algorithm does is it flips this edge so that it's now solved. It doesn't affect your other edge. It only flips this. So knowing the flipping algorithm and the parity algorithm that solves the one edge, you can basically solve any last two edges case you get. All you do is you find either the double that's solved or the double that's flipped, then position the third edge correctly, then use the flipping algorithm. If you don't have one of those two cases, you can just use the flipping algorithm, and then you'll recognize that you will have one of those two cases. Okay, now moving on to the next method that requires the use of a bunch of algorithms. So I'm going to be covering each case one by one, so let's get into it. So the first case is actually something that you already know. It's basically when you have a solved double here and a flipped double here. It looks like this. So what you want to do in this case is locate the flip double and then place the third edge in line, just like how you would solve this in the previous method. Okay, so you'd hold it like this, you'd move the third edge over, flip this edge, and then realign the centers. That solves it. I'll just do it one more time. So this is when you have a solved double and a flip double. So you want to hold it like this. If you hold it like this, it won't work, because when you move the third edge of the flip double, it doesn't solve a 2 by 1, right? So you want to hold it like this, move this third edge over, flip this, and then realign the centers. That solves it. Okay, so the second case is also something that you know. It's just when you have the single edge that needs to be flipped. Everything else is solved, you just have one edge that needs to be solved, right? So all you do for this is the parity algorithm that we discussed in the previous section. And that solves that. Okay, so moving on, the next case is when you have, instead of one, you have two edges that are completely flipped, just like this. So one way is you could use the parity algorithm on each of the edges, but there's a much simpler way to do it. So just hold the two edges on the front like this, and then just move the center of one edge to the other. It doesn't matter which one you do. You can either do it to the left or you can do it to the right. It doesn't matter. But whichever way you move it, flip that edge. So since I moved it to the right here, I'd flip this right edge. And then just realign the centers. That just solves it. It's really simple. So for example, if I moved it to the left, I'd flip this edge. Then realign the centers. That solves those two. Okay, so here's the next case. It's basically when you have a solved double on one edge and a solved double on another edge. Okay, so how you want to hold this is the two solved doubles need to line up. So you can't hold it like this, where one's like this and then one's on the top. You want to hold them so they're both lined up, just like this. Okay, so what you do from here is turn it so that they're both on the left side. So these two doubles are on the left. Don't hold it like this because they're on the right. You want to hold it like this. And the algorithm that you do for this is and what that does is it solves those two edges. So I'll just run through it one more time. You hold both of these doubles on the left, and you just do the algorithm. And that solves it. Okay, so here's the next case. So these cases start to get a little bit tricky to recognize, so do your best. So in this case, the edges kind of form two triangles. So we have one triangle over here, blue, 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 and one triangle of whites. Okay? So if you did hold it like this, it wouldn't work because they're facing different directions. You want both of these to be facing the front. Okay, so it basically forms two triangles. And how you hold it doesn't matter. You can either hold it like this, with one in the front and one in the back, or like this. It doesn't matter. So what you do is this algorithm. It's actually a pretty simple algorithm and it solves those two edges. Okay, so once again, form two triangles with the edges. Hold it so that there's one in the front and one in the back of the top. And then do the algorithm. And that solves it. Okay, so for this next case, it looks very similar to the previous case, but how you recognize this is there's only one triangle formed instead of two. So we have this blue triangle over here, but we don't have the second one, right? If you held it like this, you'd still only have one triangle, so it should be pretty easy to recognize. So how you hold it is you hold it so that the triangle is pointing downwards, like this. So once you hold it like that, you do this algorithm. And then that solves it. I'll run through the algorithm one more time. Okay, so I have the case. One triangle. If I rotate it like this, I'd still have one triangle. It's right here, the orange one. So I hold it so that the triangle is pointing down. Then I do the algorithm. And then that solves it. Okay, so here's the last case. It's when you have two sets of flip blocks like this. So how you hold it is when you hold one in the front and one in the back, you want this front block to be on the left side. So in this case, we don't have a block on the left, no matter how we turn it. So we can do that little three-move algorithm that reorients all these edges. And when we do that, so now we have one on the left, but we need one on the right here. So that's how you're going to set this up. You can do the same three-move setup again to reorient that edge. And this is how you want to hold it. You want one flip block on the left side of the front and the other flip block on the right side of the back. So one more time. If you have it like this, where they're both on the right side, you can use the three-move algorithm that flips them. So R prime, F, D prime. So that flipped this correctly. And then we can do the same one on this. So we can hold it like this and reorient it. So now we have one on the left and one on the right. We can do the algorithm. Okay, so you might want to rewind that previous part a couple of times to just understand how you're supposed to hold it and how you get to this setup. And okay, so the algorithm is that's the algorithm. One more time, you hold it so that there's one on the left, one flip block, and one flip block on the right of the back. And then you do the algorithm. And there we go. Okay guys, so that was the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you actually learned how to do your last two edges no matter what method you chose to do it in. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments and I'll answer them as soon as I can. And thanks for watching.